Hello?
Alrighty. Hello. Hi, are people here? Are you able to hear us? Oh boy. We did a little. Hello, hello. I did a little reformatting of how it actually looks, so hopefully this is a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and maybe more readable. My name is
Naomi has put
Naomi.
some bomb ass. Bleh.
Blech.
I was gonna say you put some bomb ass work into this.
I did go through and I deleted a lot of enters, and that took about 5 minutes. So, yeah, I'm kind of a
I'm so
professional.
proud of you. Yeah, look at you go, Naomi. You're doing so good.
Yeah, wow. And okay, so I'm Naomi, and this is Kira.
Hello.
Hello. So we did this stream last week, and we were super nervous, and I'm still a little nervous, but it's okay. Thank you.
Listen, anxiety is nothing. It doesn't exist.
It's fine. Um, Thank you, Thresh Song. That's awesome to hear. I was like having a lot of fun picking out the colors.
Just you excuse me. I put a special attention into my color. It is very
Okay.
important to me.
Yes, you did.
And it was my idea in the first place.
Yes, you are a genius, unsung genius.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
credit where credit is due. Uh, but yeah, so we're just gonna do a little read aloud of the old Salvage by our good friend MuffinLance. All right. Oh, point of order. Last week I was called out because I didn't leave kudos, and I did end up leaving kudos. It was just on my phone because I read fiction. Oh, yes, unsung genius. That's fair. That's fair. I wasn't gonna credit her, but now you're here, and we love you, and we support you, and we give you all the credit.
Thank
Um,
you.
but I did leave kudos. It was just on my phone because I don't typically read fiction on my computer. So there. I just wanted to get that out there and clear my name. Um, but yeah,
No
should
more
we?
Naomi wanted in the fanfiction jail.
Yeah, I'm off the wanted list. All
Okay.
right. Should we
All right,
get
all right, all right.
started? All right, all right, all right.
I suppose we shall.
Yes. All right. So continuing with the theme of amazing chapter titles, this is chapter 4. The prisoner is unnervingly cooperative during interrogations. The chief sat down behind his desk and set the dog on the floor. Zuko stood stiffly behind the room's other chair, waiting for an invitation to sit and resolving not to pull up his legs out of biting range when he did. It was just a stupid intimidation tactic. It was just a stupid dog. It growled from somewhere under the desk, but Zuko was very pointedly keeping his eyes on the chief, not the knee-high, hard-shelled menace. But he is a sweet menace, and we love him. The Fire Prince was apparently set on having this conversation while standing. He stood with his arms clasped behind his back and legs set exactly shoulder-width apart, the picture of stiff, militaristic formality. The way the borrowed shirt wouldn't stay up over both his shoulders at once seemed to be a fact the prince was studiously ignoring, as if it was more dignified than pushing it back up. Hakoda let out a breath. If the kid wanted to be uncomfortable, let him. The chair was right there whenever he decided to swallow his pride. Start from the beginning, Hakoda ordered. What beginning? The prince said, setting the tone for exactly how difficult getting straight answers from him was going to be. Oh no. What beginning? From when he fell off the Wani and ended up here? From the light at the South Pole? Why he went to the South Pole to begin with? The start of his banish, his quest for the Avatar? What did that mean, start from the beginning? The chief was staring at him like he should know. Like he was being willfully disobedient by not answering, even though he asked for clarification. Even though it was the chief who wasn't answering him, he was making rules and waiting for Zuko to break them. They'd already had this discussion on the mast. The chief wouldn't hurt him unless Zuko didn't answer his questions, so of course his questions weren't going to be fair. No wonder the Water Tribe siblings were so dedicated to the Avatar. If this was their father, they couldn't disappoint him either. Zuko didn't like them, but he didn't hate them enough for this to ruin this for them. This is so sad. Zuko. Zuko.
And this boy is so traumatized.
Get this boy better relationships with father figures, please. Oh, wait. A whole bunch of misunderstandings. Yes, it's He just wasn't raised in a place where it was going to be okay, and it's sad, and we love him, and we want better for him, and it's going to happen.
Listen, I think one of the most masterful things about this fic is just like how well the misunderstandings are communicated and why they happen. Like we know so intimately that their backgrounds and their past experiences shape how they perceive the other person, and it's so frustrating because we care about them so much, but it's so good.
Yes, I know. In a lot of stories where they're based on misunderstandings, it can feel a little frustrating, but this one, it's just heartbreaking. It's not frustrating, it's heartbreaking because you can see exactly where these conclusions come from, and I hate it, but we get through it. I hate it and I love it. Your son showed great bravery in defending his home against superior numbers, he began, and had the immediate feeling, based on the stillness of the man in front of him, that he'd started wrong. Oh! The chief kept asking about his daughter, not his son. He probably didn't even care about the non-bender. That made sense. And, your daughter, she also fought to the best of her abilities on my ship, displayed a range of water and ice-bending techniques that my crew had never faced before. They'd never faced any waterbender before, so that was completely true, even if she'd iced over her own brother and not been able to hit anyone unless she was throwing water backwards. Now, that's a good tactic, though. Just throw the water backwards and they won't see it coming.
That was a good one, Naomi. It was not Hakoda's first interrogation. It was perhaps his most intentionally civil, but it was not his first. He was familiar with the poison that captured Fire Nation soldiers spat, words meant to deliberately hurt. He wasn't used to them being so hesitantly chosen, and apparently politely intended, while also cutting him to the bone. The Fire Prince mentioned Sokka once. Once. Sokka was brave in defending his home. That was all. That was the last. In Katara, she'd fought on the prince's ship. A ship of Fire Nation soldiers had attacked his village, fought against his son, and took his daughter, who knew that revealing her bending would be a death sentence, but felt desperate enough to do so anyway. And why had they brought her aboard their ship to begin with? Gretel lunged forward, under the desk edge and around the chair the prince still refused to sit in. The young soldier backpedaled, tripping into Hakoda's bunk. He grabbed a pillow and held it up like a shield between himself and the snarling isopup that had clearly picked up on its master's displeasure. The boy didn't use his fire, or kick the dog away. He hadn't out on the deck either. Hakoda stood and picked up the dog again. The prince continued to hold the slightly mauled pillow like he expected Hakoda to hurt him and wasn't sure how to defend himself. Hakoda carried the dog to the porthole and shooed him outside, clicked it closed, and sat back down in his own chair, as sharp legs pawed ineffectually at the glass behind him. The boy was watching him with in the same way he'd watched the dog, warily, like it was only a matter of when he would be attacked, not if. I gave you my word, Prince Zuko. Keep your end and I'll keep mine. Now sit. I'm already sitting. Hakoda kept looking at the prince until he finally uncurled from his awkward defensive huddle on Hakoda's bed and stood. Your pillow was leaking feathers. Yes, Hakoda was aware. Leave it. The boy left it back at the head of the bed where he'd first snatched it from, turned over as if that would make Hakoda forget the damage. Then he sat as stiffly as he'd stood, his golden eyes occasionally darting towards the porthole over Hakoda's shoulder, and the muffled growling still coming through it. What was your mission in the South Pole? Hakoda asked. It quickly became apparent that the Fire Nation had no oral storytelling tradition of which to speak. Either that, or the prince was simply very, very bad at this.
Both.
I was hunting the Avatar. I found him. There was that pillar of light, and then the signal flares, and...
What? No, she attacked my ship. We didn't attack her. Why would I kidnap some random gross peasant girl? I mean, young lady. She composed herself well in battle, successfully executing a surprise tactical strike and recapturing the Avatar despite being outnumbered and facing a superior element. What? No, it wasn't your daughter in the dress. It was... And it is a highly respected tradition on their island. He must have truly impressed them for them to even allow him to train with them. The Kyoshi warriors are... Of course he's alive. Why would you think... I did not say that. Hakoda held up a hand to stop the prince from saying more words. Please stop him. He was having trouble keeping up, honestly. But there was one thing that was becoming bafflingly apparent in the prince's narrative. Are you trying to flatter my children? No. Well, that established a baseline for how effectively the prince lied, at least. Hakoda lowered his hand. The prince continued. At least he dropped the flattery. I know, he really wants Hakoda to like him. He's such
a disaster.
He's a disaster, and he just needs support. How would I know where they got that much blasting jelly? I wasn't there, but towns don't just flood themselves, and Regional Command doesn't just send out urgent wanted posters. No, that was after she tricked them into putting her into the Earthbender prison. Before they made the volcano erupt. I am not mumbling. I said with us inside. I didn't mean to imply that your daughter steals from pirates, but the pirates thought she did, so, I saved her from them? Well, I had to tie her to something. I couldn't just let the pirates bring her on their ship, and I didn't trust her not to break something on mine. I'm not mumbling. I said I used the good rope. They're your children. If they would just let me capture the Avatar, maybe they'd be in less mortal peril. If you're not going to believe me, then why am I even talking to you?
What a teenager.
He's just a teen, and he's just a kid, and life is a nightmare. That's all. He would listen to Bowling for Soup.
Naomi. Hakoda wasn't sure when his headache had started and could not fathom its end. The boy sat across from him with arms crossed, glaring at a spot on the wall, refusing to speak further. Which was not what they had agreed on, up on that mast. There was no room for petty sulking and answer my questions and I won't hurt you. But it was late, and there was a tired slump to the team's shoulders that hadn't been there when they had begun. And Hakoda himself could use a night to think on what he just heard and how much he could trust any of it. It sounded fantastical, but there was a convoluted sincerity to it that would be hard to fake, which by no means meant it was true. He wasn't ruling out the possibility that the prince had simply had very vivid fever dreams, which happened to involve 2 water tribe children his crew had killed. One of the Hakoda's Earth Kingdom contacts would know if the Avatar had returned. If he had water tribe companions, if they were all safe. He would send an albatross pigeon as soon as it was light enough. It would only be a few days before he had some form of confirmation, or denial, for the prince's story, which left a more immediate problem. The prince tensed under his gaze. Apparently, Hakoda's face hadn't been as blank as he'd intended. I answered you, the prince said. What else do you want me to say? You said quite enough, Prince Zuko, Hakoda replied. I need time to confirm it. In the meantime, there will be rules you need to follow while you are aboard this ship. The boy's good eye narrowed almost as far as his burned one. You said you weren't going to hurt me if I talked. And now I won't hurt you if you follow the rules. Your escape attempts must stop. It distracts my crew, and anything that distracts them might get them killed. If I have to break your legs, I will. If you force me to kill you, I will. It's up to you. The boy didn't respond. He watched Hakoda with narrowed eyes. You will follow orders from myself and my crewmen, and you will work. We have no prison cell to keep you in, and every man here earns his meals. Understand? The prince still looked mutinous. Hakoda would be surprised if he'd worked a day in his life, but there was no way he'd leave the soldier idle. The boy was creative enough without being given time for his creativity. And no firebending. This is a wooden ship. Even stray sparks like what you made up on the mast could cripple it, say nothing of an actual attack, either against the ship or my crew. We have no way of restraining a firebender safely. I tell you, this is a warning, not an invitation. If you start bending, I'll have no choice but to kill you. There may be other rules later, but for now, I can't, the soldier interrupted.
He works so hard. I know. That's, Hakoda's like, you have to work, and it's like, that's not going to be a problem. You don't even have to say that. Hakoda stared him down, waited for a protest he was sure he wasn't going to like. I can work, and the next time I escape, you won't catch me, but I can't just not bend. I'm not a master. I can't turn it off, and it's not healthy. Who does that? But I can give you my word of honor that I won't hurt anyone, and if I do start a fire, I'll put it out, and Prince Zuko, Hakoda said, you'll have to forgive me for doubting you. There was a rather large, rather obvious reason he couldn't, staring him in the face. He'd never seen a firebender with such a serious burn. Someone who could simply put out fires wouldn't have a mark like that. Oh! The prince seemed to realize where he was looking. He drew in a sharp breath, and then his hands were on fire. Hakoda was on his feet with a knife in hand, and the Grimm thought that this was certainly one way to end their firebender problem. The prince was on his feet too, backing away as far as the small cabin allowed. He let his flames go out, but stayed in a ready stance. His hands had been in his lap when the flames had started, but there were no singe marks on the cloth. Hakoda lowered his knife slowly, gauging the prince's reaction. The prince lowered his hand by the same degree as Hakoda. Hakoda sheathed his weapon, and the boy eased out of his stance fully. I didn't, the prince said to myself. I mean, I did, but not like that. Hakoda let out a breath. If you burn anything, or anyone, I'll have no choice, and I won't be responsible for the crew's actions if you startle someone. My men have no love for your kind, firebender. The boy nodded, jerkily. He crossed his arms again, and Hakoda had a suspicion it was less about prideful posturing and more about hiding hands that might start shaking as the adrenaline wore off. What are you planning to do with me? I'll be opening talks with your father. You can go home as soon as he meets our demands. Hakoda had not predicted abject horror as the response to his statement. You can't tell father. Having his son captured it will shame him. You'll need to talk to my uncle, not father. He'll get anything you ask for. Just don't tell the Fire Lord. Fire Nation pride was ridiculous. He's your father, Prince Zuko, Hakoda interrupted. Does he want you home? Yes, the prince answered. Yes, of course he does. No. Oh, Prince Zuko, no. Then he'll meet at least some of our terms. I'm not unreasonable. I don't expect your capture to end the war, and I won't put your father in a position where he has to refuse our demands entirely. Leave the negotiating to us, and stop trying to escape. Because if the Rat Viper thought Hakoda had missed that "next time I escape you won't catch me," he was mistaken. You're safe here, so long as you obey the rules we set. No.
Poor boy. Poor boy.
Stab me in the heart right now.
Zuko had never been very good with rules. Other people made them and changed them when they wanted, and they were never in Zuko's favor, and they'd certainly never made him safe. 13 years in the palace and 2.5 dealing with the ever-changing restrictions of his banishment had taught him that. The Water Tribe chief seriously thought Zuko would believe it was any different on a barbarian ship. He was as much of an idiot as his children. Zuko wasn't naive. He knew how the world worked. It was fine. He'd just do what he always did. Agree, then do what he had to, and try not to get caught. Hakoda didn't like that look in the prince's eye at all. It was good enough, but it was good enough for tonight. It had to be, unless he wanted to kill the boy right now. You're going to bed, Prince Zuko, he said, and you'll remain there until one of my men comes for you in the morning. Am I clear? If that nod wasn't the very definition of grudging, Hakoda didn't know what was. But he'd made no rules against general surliness. He opened the cabin door and made an after-you gesture. The healer's room was right across the hall, and the boy started towards it. Not there, Hakoda corrected. You'll forgive me for wanting extra eyes on you, Prince Zuko, and you're not sick anymore.
Make a rule against general surliness. It's against the rules to be a teenager. He would immediately get thrown off the ship.
Far too many parents.
True.
I like that.
True.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
He motioned the stairs down. The prince approached them with enough caution that Hakoda was reasonably certain he hadn't prowled below deck during his escape. The crew cabin took up most of this level. There was a bit of storage in the back, and the last set of stairs down to the main supplies. Primarily, though, it was a simple room. Hammocks for each of the crew, and sea chests tucked at the edges and secured against storms. There was only one empty spot. As practical as it was to give it to the Fire Prince, it still left a bitter taste in Hakoda's mouth. They'd left Bato at the Abbey weeks ago. If he was well, then he'd meet them at the rendezvous point soon. If he wasn't, in the middle of the room, the prince complained. Will that be a problem? Hakoda asked, toned very clearly, stating that it would not be. Creepy, the boy muttered, but sat down. Hakoda left orders with the crew at large. At least 2 pairs of eyes should always be on the boy, and starting tomorrow, they'd work him hard enough he was too tired for escape.
He's never too tired for escape. That's your first mistake. He literally tried to escape when he was not fully conscious. It's not possible.
His fever dream was an escape attempt.
Yeah. It was really creepy. The hammock moved in exactly the way a proper futon didn't, and he couldn't lay flat, and there were water tribesmen all around him, and he couldn't see them all at once, no matter how he twisted. And these furs and blankets were dusty, and was he in a dead man's bed? Why was this empty? More tired equals better escapes. Yes. More tired equals less inhibitions and more creative escapes.
For sure.
Yeah. Healer Kusta had a hammock near his, apparently. He snorted as Zuko turned over again. If I get you a cup of tea to help you sleep, are you going to drug someone else? Zuko flushed. The chief hadn't asked about that. Zuko hadn't thought anyone had noticed. And anyway, it wasn't his fault their guard was an unobservant idiot who couldn't tell even when his tea was been spiked. The guard had been huge and suspicious of him, and huge. Zuko hadn't wanted to fight him, but the man had sucked at keeping track of his teacup. I wasn't going to drink your drugged tea, Zuko snapped. Quietly, because there were people sleeping, and the ones still awake hated him enough already. Nice of you not to let it go to waste, the healer retorted. How are you feeling? Anything broken? Why do you care? Healer, kid. Don't make me come over there and start poking. He didn't hurt me, Zuko answered. It's his job as an uncle to worry. There is absolutely nothing reassuring in the healer's quiet, Good night, brat. If you make another escape, don't wake me up. I won't, Zuko said. One of the other tribesmen snorted, like he thought they were joking. Healer Kusta snorted, because he knew they weren't. Kusta knows him so well.
Good.
What a good chapter.
Okay. Chapter 5. Attempts to tucker out Ozai's spawn are met with inhuman resistance. Another beautiful chapter title. They went to drag the Fire Prince out of bed at the crack of dawn. He was already sitting up in Bacha's old hammock, arms crossed. In retrospect, this was the phenomenon colloquially, Jesus, that's a hard word, colloquially referred to as fair warning. He finished, Tuluk said. What? Hakoda looked up from their course charts, then out the porthole to the sun's position, then back to his acting second. Tuluk was nudging Scuttles with his foot, keeping the dog from bolting out the cabin door and towards the topic of their conversation. He was down in the hold. Should be down in the hold. Should be down there all day, pushing all their cargo from one side to the other because he had found a better way to organize things during 2 years at sea, but had never quite found the time to implement it fully. They weren't supposed to help him that much. They didn't help him at all, his acting second said. Kid didn't even ask. Didn't take any breaks either. Make sure he does, before Healer Kusta has our heads. The little viper gets growly if you imply he's tired, Tuluk snorted, and pushed off the door frame. Going to have him swab the deck next. Pretty sure Ake can have him missing a spot for at least an hour. Zuko had done that spot 3 times. He had not missed it. The stupid tribesmen were just messing with him. If you're tired, one of them taunted, you could take it. I'm not tired. From moving every box in their hold, while they didn't help at all. And the dog had gotten out of the chief's office, and he'd gotten a splinter in his hand trying to climb away from it. Now it was tied to the main mast and growling at him, which was still better than the wide water tribe warriors who were smirking. Zuko pushed the stupid mop over the spot he'd missed again, and watched out of the corner of his eye as the crew changed the sails to catch the shifting wind. He'd pushed around the ship's boats while he was mopping. They were as technologically deprived as the rest of the ship, so they clearly had places to rig up sails, which would really increase the potential range and speed of his escape, if he could figure out how sails worked. And now he knew exactly where in their hold their food was stored, and their water casks. One of the crewmen, the big guy with the black eye who was always glaring at him, the one who'd suggested breaking his leg, grabbed the end of Zuko's mop. Zuko glared up at him, harder. You're barely even getting the deck wet. Start over. Start over? You heard me. The deck wasn't even dirty. It hadn't been when he'd started, and it definitely wasn't now. He'd already gone over the entire thing once, more than once. The leg breaker was glaring down at him, waiting for him to cave, and the dog was still growling, and he just wanted to take 5 minutes and dig out the stupid splinter in his hand without someone being snide about him taking a break. And his last guards had passed him off to this guy and then turned up on deck eating their lunch, but no one had offered him anything yet. The crew was just taking turns eating in front of him like he hadn't earned it yet. Zuko put a foot in the bucket's rim and kicked it on the bucket's rim and kicked it. It spilled across the deck, over the leg breaker's feet. Is that enough water?
Oh, the sass. Oh, it's hard being a teenager. I love his inner monologue. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, man.
Stream of consciousness is very, very delightful.
Yeah. You can just, like, see his temperature starting to rise. Oh, buddy.
Just, like, his face is, like a thermometer, but his face with red going up.
Yeah.
Like in cartoons.
Yes, perfect. Oh, poor buddy. The sass. I'm going to murder the brat if you let Tiluk saddle me with him again, Ake reported after a polite knock on Hakoda's doorframe. Just so you know. He was smiling more pleasantly than a man should with a split lip. Noted, Hakoda said. I wasn't escaping, and I didn't use my bending, and I was working. I've been working all day. Whatever he said, he's lying, the prince snapped, as soon as Hakoda stepped foot into the healer's room. The soldier was perched at the edge of a bunk, his hands tied around the wooden frame, gold eyes simmering unrepentantly up at Hakoda. His borrowed shirt was off. Healer Custa was poking at new bruises on his ribs. He said you kicked a bucket of water over on him, then you exchanged blows. Oh, the prince said. He's not lying then. New rule. No instigating fights with my crew, with or without bending. He instigated, the future Fire Lord mumbled. What was that? Nothing. He shifted his scowl to the wall, wincing slightly as Kusta prodded an especially dark spot. Hakoda held off rubbing his temples until he was back in the hall. It's hard being a dad. Zuko mopped the deck.
So much temple rubbing.
Yeah. Professional temple rubbing. He is the future Fire Lord. That is true. We will not forget, and neither will Hakoda. Zuko mopped the deck. Again. At least he had different tribesmen breathing down his neck. At least the healer had gotten the stupid splinter out, and once he was done poking at Zuko's ribs, he was like, I have this splinter. How am I going to get an excuse to see the healer? Let's just start a fight. Maybe. Maybe that's the way to go.
Listen, he's a genius. You can't fault him for that.
No. Genius. And then he had to sweep below deck and scrub out their, not hawkery, what even were these things? He scrubbed the cages of the world's biggest, loudest seagulls. One of them cooed and got its beak tangled in his ponytail. Aw, look, said one of his newest guards, leaning against the doorframe. She likes him. Or she's trying to eat him, his other guard said, more realistically. When he was done, his guards ducked into the cramped room that served as the ship's kitchen, and came out with their own dinners, and proceeded to eat in front of him. Again.
I doesn't understand a goddamn thing.
To be fair, nobody explained it to him.
No, no one
poor
did.
Guy. Aww.
Cultural differences.
You'll love it. It was a nice night. Strong breeze, clear sky, the stars just starting to come out. The constellations were strange this far north, the familiar guiding stars low to the horizon or hidden entirely. They'd had to purchase new charts 2 years ago, and their patterns still didn't speak to Hakoda like those in the south did. There was something unnerving in looking up and finding that the stars that watched over their people had no eyes to see him here. Yes, cultural differences.
Just excellent.
Yes.
Excellent prose.
We love the prose, especially then we get like later when we get the Yue moments. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are very good. I love them. But yes, that's part of why I love this fic so much, is it really plays with the cultural differences, and it's just, it feels very fully realized and fleshed out, and I love it. Your prince is starting to starve himself, Panook reported. He leaned back against the rail. It had been a nice night. Hakoda lowered his sextant. You got him food? Yeah, we got a few plates and tried to eat with him. He didn't touch anything. You're sure he's not too used to eating babes and drinking the blood of the innocent? Might have a hard time switching diets. Their second youngest crewman was smirking, but there was something worried at the edge of his eyes. Worried for the prince or about him, Hakoda didn't know. Any more trouble? He cast a glance over the deck to where the prince was stiffly sitting, glaring at Toklo as he finished his own meal. The communal plates were right there, but the prince was keeping his distance from them. Just a lot of snarling and snapping, and I'm pretty sure brooms were an exotic animal he'd only seen from a distance before today. Better watch out with him and the albatross pigeons, though. Did he threaten them? Panook flashed a grin. Nah, the big dummies like him. Seabreeze tried to preen him and spent about 5 minutes tangled in his hair, but the only ones he growled at were us. Better be careful if he doesn't convert them to the enemy birds. Oh, better be careful he doesn't convert them to enemy birds. I love Seabreeze. Little Griffin McElroy reference, perhaps?
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
One may never know.
One of our bravest soldiers. Enemy birds. What is that? What is the thing where, what is, like, birds aren't real? That's, like, a thing that people are saying?
Oh, they're a government conspiracy?
Yes, exactly. He's going to turn them into a government conspiracy.
The reason we needed a pandemic was so that the government could charge all the birds.
What? Excuse me?
It's something a friend of mine told me.
Oh my god.
And I have accepted it as fact.
The birds work for the bourgeoisie.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Yeah. Who has the money to take care of a bird? Checkmate. Checkmate, birds.
The chief wanted to see him. At least this time he didn't keep Zuko standing. Sit was the first word out of his mouth. Then eat. He sounded so much like he was ordering his dog around that Zuko almost refused on principle, but he needed to keep his strength up if he was going to escape. And after a day of doing all the water tribe's hard labor for them, any food at all smelled good. It was good. There were more flavors than he was expecting, and salt wasn't as overwhelming as the time Uncle had taken him to that authentic water tribe restaurant. Besides, if the chief was giving this to him, then he must have finally done enough to earn his meal. Poor babe. Okay. Apparently the prince was not on a hunger strike, just too prideful to ask for food, or eat from the same place as the rest of the crew. They'd have to break him of that. Hakoda waited until he was done. It didn't take very long. Then the kid was looking up at him again, as surly suspicious as always. Hakoda slid the empty plate away and replaced it with a sheet of paper. Write to your father. And there was that look of near panic again, directed at the blank sheet instead of him. Okay, the prince said, and proceeded to write exactly nothing. Hakoda sat. I know. Hakoda sat across the desk and finished updating the ship's log for the day. He tried not to rush the boy. His own letter to the Fire Lord had taken considerable time. In the end, he knew it wasn't up to whatever courtly perfection the man would be used to, but it was at least sincere. He tried to imagine what it would be like if it were Sokka in the Fire Nation's hands, what he would give to get his son back, and what he couldn't give and still call himself chief. The Fire Lord was a father too. Is he?
Is he though?
And that's how his final draft had turned out, an unadorned letter from one father to another. Their fleet had been forced to retreat from an attack a few weeks back, the same one that had left Bato on the brink of, had left his second in need of prolonged medical care. Several men from another ship had been captured. Hakoda's letter demanded the return of their men, and a treaty regarding the Fire Nation's presence in Southern Tribe waters. He hoped by the end of this tasteless haggling to at least have his men back. The prince still hadn't written anything. Hakoda let out a quiet breath. Not quiet enough that it didn't startle the kid. Wide gold eyes met his, glinting in the light of the oil lamp, like the boy really did have fire inside. It was unsettling. He's your father, Prince Zuko, Hakoda said. Just tell him you're safe and being well treated. But I'm not, the brat said. And I'm not. Hakoda set his jaw, holding in his response. We could be treating you a lot worse, Your Highness. This must all be very alarming to a palace-raised noble, asked to do basic chores, forced to eat basic meals without a single service in sight. The Fire Nation brought war elsewhere. The war didn't come to it. No doubt the prince had been sheltered on his ship until the ocean had delivered him to Water Tribe's hands. Right, Hakoda ordered.
Oh,
I know.
Zuko. Under the table, Zuko tucked his bruised wrist between his legs. He wrote, "Oh, he's not safe, huh? No."
He's so scared.
Who wouldn't be? Buddy, I'm sorry. It was an entirely inadequate for expressing his shame over being captured. Not his apologies. Apologies were excuses, and Father didn't like... And he'd vowed to do better if given another chance. He'd been so close. He'd found the Avatar when no one else had. Father didn't like bragging unless Azula was doing it. But he would capture the Avatar and bring him home. If he was granted another chance, he wouldn't squander it. He would make the Fire Nation proud. The chief read his letter when he was done. His growing silence was an uncomfortable preview of Father's reaction. "Can I get back to work now?" Zuko asked. "Go to bed, Prince Zuko. The crew will get you in the morning." Zuko had that dream. The crew didn't appreciate it. "Sorry," he snapped. "I'll try to have my nightmares more quietly." The crew didn't like that either. He hadn't noticed Hirokusta leaving, but he came back with tea. It was just jasmine, but it was calming, just to hold it and focus his breaths on keeping it warm as he waited for the sun to rise. "Buddy, I'm so sorry. This breaks my little heart every time. Doesn't get easier."
No.
Apparently in the mornings, the crew went about rubbing sticks with sandstones on them across their deck before mopping. He just missed out on it yesterday. Zuko nearly asked if he could rearrange their entire hold again. At least it used different muscles. "With the grain," a crewman said. He had been going with the grain. He just slipped a little. They didn't need to watch him literally every second waiting for his inevitable screw-up. "Put your back into it," another snapped. His back wouldn't hurt if he wasn't putting his back into it. It didn't help that it was colder today. They were moving farther south, or maybe the weather was just turning, but the breeze had been cool yesterday, was cold today. His loose clothes were doing nothing to help. It almost felt like they were funneling the wind against him. He was keeping up his breath of fire, but the crew was giving him looks for how his breath steamed in the air, and he remembered the chief's warning. The man wouldn't even pretend to protect him if he'd startled the crew with his bending, whatever startled meant. Startled, like having a giant bird fall out of the sky and onto the deck in front of him. "What?" Zuko said. It was one of those giant seagulls they used as messenger birds. It had landed face first, and bounced, and now it was standing there next to his feet, cooing, as if it wasn't sure it was, he wasn't sure if that was a distressed noise or not. "Is it okay?" "It's fine," a crewman said dismissively, picking up the whole giant bird under one arm. The thing was bigger than the ship's dog, and possibly less flight capable. Wait,
I love
okay.
the albatross pigeons.
They are huge. That's huge. That's a big boy. That's a big boy. If it's bigger than, like, I don't know, how big is the dog at this point? Like, kind of like a medium dog size, I guess. That's a big bird. That is a big bird.
It's a big bird.
I'd like to imagine that it does kind of like a cartoonish bounce. Like it kind of does like a little like boing boing boing, like a kind of a rubber ball situation.
And there's probably some stars going around its head.
Yes, definitely stars going around the head for sure. Okay. Zuko watched the man carry it below deck, probably to drop off its message with the chief, and he knew it was too early for a reply from his father, but back to work. Zuko scowled and attacked the deck like it was all his life problems. The deck didn't look particularly different after his efforts either. Yeah, there you go. That's a good coping mechanism. Just do a little cleaning. It's fine.
That's how I cope.
Yeah, there you go.
The albatross pigeon carrying Hakoda's message to the Fire Lord and the prince's own dubious confirmation of his safety had gone out with the dawn. Hakoda's message to his allies in the Earth Kingdom had gone out after his interview with the prince. This was the fastest reply he'd ever gotten from General Flung, by a significant margin. The Earth Kingdom was pleased to offer a prison to hold the captured prince, much safer and more secure than a wooden ship operating in contested seas. The Earth Kingdom eagerly anticipated his reply and was sending one of their fastest ships, fully equipped to restrain even a royal firebender. The Earth Kingdom was happy to take this valuable prisoner and all negotiating power from the Water Tribe, and use the prince for their own agenda. Postscript. Oh, and they'd send along the information they'd gathered on the Avatar and his traveling companions as well. Sometimes Hakoda wondered how stupid the generals thought he was. They'd gotten off on the wrong foot 2 years ago, when he'd shown up with his fleet and offered to join the war for free. No terms, no contracts, no bartering. The Earth Kingdom had only been too glad to accept such undemanding allies, and had proceeded to treat them like uncultured but enthusiastic children ever since. Disgusting. We thank you for your generous offer, Hakoda began to pen back, but someone knocked on his door and proceeded to shove the Fire Prince inside. He was bending, Ake said, following after. You said I could, the prince protested. Hakoda wondered if the firebender realized he'd rooted his stance the moment he found his feet, or that he was standing to the side of Hakoda's desk, naturally keeping both water tribesmen in view. Had he done that deliberately, or was it an instinct bred into the blood? The chief told you, Ake said, that you could go around deck breathing fire.
Ugh. Man. Fucking Earth Kingdom. Get over yourselves, guys.
Yeah. Fucking... Ugh. Eat a stick.
Zuko hadn't been trying to breathe fire, but he'd done something else the crew didn't like, and then someone had snidely said, "Your father must be so proud," and his breath of fire hadn't been a fire breath, but only for a heartbeat or two. There were barely any flames, and there hadn't even been anything flammable in front of him, and then the leg breaker was grabbing his arm and dragging him off, and Zuko wasn't allowed to instigate fights, so he'd gone with, and had been stupidly relieved when the man had brought him into the chief's room, not someplace with less witnesses, which was extra stupid because it wasn't like the chief cared. "Prince Zuko," the man said, not even bothering to rise from his seat. "Explain yourself." "I'm cold," he said. "It's cold. Is there a rule against being cold?" The chief watched him with those blue eyes. Zuko squared his shoulder and drew himself up, and let out a few sparks on his next exhale. "You little snack, you little shit." I was like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do about it?
He is the biggest little shit.
The biggest little shit. The man finally stood. He stepped towards Zuko, and Zuko stiffened, but then he knelt down and rummaged through his sea chest and pulled out a coat. "There is a rule against being cold, actually," the chief said, and his tone said that he was trying to joke, but his eyes were still glacier cold. "You can borrow that. Now stop breathing fire." Zuko tugged the coat on. The sleeves puddled over his arms, nearly to his knees. The fur trim of the hood tickled at his neck and smelled musty, like mildew, like everything did that got stored on for too long on a ship. It also smelled a little like sweat, which was actually an upgrade from the clothes he'd already been wearing, and from everyone else on the ship, which smelled a lot like sweat. He hadn't spotted a shower room, which was fair. The ship was decades behind even the Wani's outdated design. Maybe the Water Tribe didn't have showers yet. But he hadn't spotted any place to bathe at all. Did they bathe? No one here smelled like it. Not even him. What a monologue. This kid needs a shower.
He also doesn't understand.
Wait, could you imagine? Could you imagine teenage stink on a ship for like weeks and no shower? No deodorant? Oh boy. Oh boy. I don't want to think about that. No. That's the real torture.
You get used to it at some point.
Do you?
I mean, what other choice do you have?
Yeah, that thought terrifies me. That's going to keep me up at night. I'm going to be like, oh my god, how long did they not shower? Oh man. It's too big.
Well, hold on. Did you know that some people have genetics, like some groups of people have genetics where their sweat doesn't smell as bad?
Yeah, but teenagers, though. That is rank. That is... Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know.
I think people descended from Europe have especially stinky exercise sweat and stress sweat.
All right. That may be fair. We are stinky little bastards. Better? The man asked. It's too big, Zuko said, and it smells weird. Okay, the chief said. It's been a while since we've had a laundry day, hasn't it? Why don't you grab Panuk and Toklo and tell them the good news? His Majesty has offered to help with their favorite chore. His Majesty was for Fire Lords, not princes. Zuko did not correct the chief. Someday, Zuko. You'll get there. Stop breathing fire wasn't a phrase Hakoda had ever thought he'd use. He sat back down as Ake marched the prince out and picked back up his quill, his reply to the Earth Kingdom still waiting. He slid over a clean sheet. We will consider your offer. The Earth Kingdom's proposed rendezvous point wasn't far off their current course, and it was in the right direction for their meetup with Bato. Hakoda sent his reply.
Zuko's new guards were some of the same from yesterday, when he was cleaning deck below and scrubbing out the bird cages. I hate you so much right now, the younger of them said. I hope you realize that. Zuko's shoulders tensed, but he managed both to keep his mouth shut and not breathe fire, because he was pretty sure that was a rule now, even if the chief hadn't explicitly said it. He's joking, kid, the other crewman, who was not that much older than him, said. Laundry is just the worst. Why? Zuko couldn't remember anyone complaining about it back on the Wani. Latrine duty and night watch had been the punishment details. Besides being woman's work, here, carry this. The older but too young to be calling anyone kid, one said, pushing a woven basket into his hands. He grabbed one for himself, too, so Zuko took it. Come on, we'll give you a demonstration. They went back on deck. The elder looked at the younger and took a step behind him. The younger one sighed dramatically. Laundry, he called out, with all the fake passion of an Ember Island player butchering a death scene. Which was when people started throwing dirty shirts at them, which was disgusting enough, but then a few went below deck to change and came back with worse things to throw. The older one's name was Panuk, apparently, and he shamelessly kept hiding behind them as the crew threw taunts and overripe clothes. The younger's name was Toklo, and he was much, much worse than Zuko at dodging. Hate you both, Toklo sighed as the rain of clothes died down. And now to freeze our arms off. Hope you didn't like being able to feel your fingers, Your Majesty. Your Highness, Zuko said. Majesty is for the Fire Lord. I'll keep that in mind the next time I'm talking to the Fire Lord, Toklo said.
Ooh, snap.
Music burn.
Get sassed.
They hauled up bucket after bucket of water and filled the half barrels that were apparently going to be their laundry tubs. The scrub boards looked a lot like the ones on the ship, just smaller. And this was the first sign Zuko had seen of soap existing in the Water Tribe ship, which was much more of a lift in his spirits than it should be. He'd only been fully conscious for 2 days, but he already missed soap so much. What's woman's work? Zuko asked as he tried to touch his shirt, this shirt as little as possible as he scrubbed it. Was he just supposed to rub it up and down a little? For how long? Did that actually get the smell out? Because there was a lot of smell. You know, woman's work, Toko said, like cleaning and cooking and sewing and stuff. Only we don't have any women, so they always make the youngest crewman do it. And guess what? That's always us. He's just angry he's getting good at it, Panuk said. Make a proper wife out of... Why is your water steaming? It's not, Zuko said, because it wasn't steaming much, and with a careful exhale to vent a few degrees, it wasn't steaming at all, and they couldn't prove anything. Truly-in-law, it's warm, Zuko said, because he just shoved both his arms in and was doing his best to drape himself over the side. How did you do that? This feels amazing. Do it to mine.
Zuko discovering his real purpose in life. Laundryman.
Yes.
Yes. The older of the two was staring at Zuko. It was a creepy, measuring stare, and then his eyes flicked across the deck to the leg breaker, who was watching them with a frown while he tied off a line. He was always watching Zuko. Did Hakoda really give you permission to use your bending? Panuk asked. Space heater, Zuko, yes. Get one today. Zuko bristled. I wasn't lying. Legbreaker just didn't believe me. Panuk snorted, a half-smile pulling at his lips. Legbreaker? Zuko did not smile back. He wanted to break my legs. Oh, right. Well, that just stopped being funny. He cleared his throat very pointedly, not looking back towards the senior crewman. So, can you heat ours too? Shouldn't we check with the chief first? Make sure he actually said it was okay? The younger crewman asked. He made no move to remove himself from Zuko's water or his personal space. Hey, hello. Glad you didn't miss it this time. Welcome, welcome. Let's see, where was I? I mean, we could, but if Hakoda says no, then no warm water. But if we just trust the prince at his word, I believe you implicitly, your highness. The two younger crewmen had been sitting next to each other. They forced Zuko into the middle instead, where he would be an optimum water heater for all 3 barrels. Zuko was glad he hadn't known about this yesterday, when he'd written the letter to his father. Now that he would have said anything, not that he would have said anything about it, or ever would to anyone ever, but it would have been even harder to write if he'd known that what his royal bending was getting used for. Father would probably find it fitting for his level, or maybe that was just Azula's voice in the back of his mind. No, you're very useful. This is very good.
I wish I had a personal heater. Come on.
I know. It's so cold. And listen, if I could just, have a hot tub anytime, I'm just saying, that's ideal.
And, not use energy or electricity to get it. Mwah. The dream.
Yeah. It's perfect. It's a perfect system. At least he wasn't mopping again. Someone else was stuck doing that today. Why do they use that much water? Zuko asked. What, to swab the deck? Panook said. Zuko nodded, and the tribesman stopped scrubbing for a moment to rap his knuckles against the deck. Wood, not steel. Swabbing keeps the boards swollen, helps stop them from warping, and makes sure we get rained on below deck as minimally as possible come the next storm. Wood isn't exactly waterproof unless you treat it right. So Zuko really hadn't been using enough water, and he'd missed every spot, and he really had needed to start over. Panook was still giving him that reassuring look. Have you ever scrubbed a shirt in your life? No. So the tribesmen showed him how, and after a while they'd done enough that they switched to just having him and Toklo wash while Panook rang things out. It wasn't that hard, it was just really repetitive. Zuko could see how this would be awful with cold water, how maybe they wouldn't want to do it too often.
We'd better stop and hang some of this up, Panook said. Why don't you just send the water out? Zuko asked, which got him a really strange look from both of the crewmen. Is that not something water bending can do?
Oh my god, Zuko, you can't just ask someone if they can't water bend. Rude.
So rude, don't you know?
Jeez.
We're not benders, Toklo said. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's almost like there's been a genocide against them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's trivial. Come on.
It's fine.
Something, Who is? Would they help? They were still looking at him. So Zuko narrowed his eyes and looked back. Would they help or not? You don't have any benders, your highness, Panook said. And for the first time, he didn't say the title like it was a joke, or even just a name. He said it like it had weight. Didn't your elders, or your teachers, your tutors, whatever, didn't they teach you what your nation did to ours? Why we're out here fighting you? They were a pirate fleet, picking off lone navy ships and defying the Fire Lord's petitions for peace, forcing the Navy for strict dealings with the southern settlements who supported them. Was not a safe answer. Zuko tried to think what they would have been taught. There were raids? They took our benders, Panook said. Probably killed them. You'd know better than I would. Never saw them again. We still have benders, though. The chief's daughter is the last. Which was crazy. The lie. There had to be more. They were just hiding them. It wasn't possible that the Navy had just gone in and taken all of them. What would a nation without any benders even look like? And what were the odds that the only village his ship had visited would have the South Pole's last waterbender living in its ice hovels? What were the odds he would really find the Avatar?
Genocide in this Fire Nation? More likely than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Such an applicable meme.
Yes, indeed. The tribesman blinked, his dark expression clearing to something a lot more confused. You... what? It wouldn't be as good as water bending because I can't get the salt out, but neither would hanging them up. But I could dry them if you want. Sure.
Hakoda was taking his turn at the wheel when Tuluk came up and tapped him on the shoulder, pointed down without saying a word, and took the wheel from him. Hakoda walked to the edge of the quarterdeck and looked over the rail. Directly below, the prince and their 2 youngest crewmen were doing laundry, as ordered. Toklo appeared to be scrubbing. Panuk was wringing the clothes out and then passing them on to the prince, who was pressing the fabric flat between his hands, a thin trail of smoke, no, steam, seeping out between his fingers. His face wasn't screwed up in a scowl for once, just in concentration for once. He almost looked like a normal teenager, one that wasn't fueled by spite and the desire to inflict headaches. That's his soul fuel. It's better than fossil fuel. Fossil fuel, certainly.
Burns more cleanly, for sure.
Yeah. The other crewmen were watching Hakoda for a reaction, which would require him to figure out how he felt about this. He leaned against the rail. It was certainly an unanticipated use for firebending. Oh, me. Mood. I, too, am fueled by spite. Hakoda, how did you get the idea there are teenagers not fueled by spite? That's true. Listen, he left his kids when they were pretty young, you know. He just doesn't have enough experience. This is making up for lost time by giving him the teenageriest teenager.
You get all the angst in one.
Yeah.
No, really.
Just speed run. That's a convenient trick. The prince startled. Hard. He dropped the pair of pants he'd been drying a bare moment before his hands lit on fire. Oh no. This was a much more familiar use of the ability, yes. The boy looked up at him, eyes wide in the moment before he switched back to scowling. He closed his fists, dousing the flames. I didn't burn it. I can see that. And it's faster than hanging them. And Panuk said I could. Wow, just throw me under the charging elephant walrus, the crewman in question said, with a wry smile. Hakoda kept staring down. The boy kept glaring up, somehow managing to look more defiant with every moment that passed. It was little things, the way his shoulders tensed more and more, the way his spine straightened, the way his legs shifted like he was preparing to leap to his feet if it proved necessary. Like many from his nation, Prince Zuko did not know when to back down. Oh, thank you for the follow. The prince had called Panuk by a name. That was a first, as far as Hakoda knew. Even Kusta was just healer. And he'd managed to go almost the whole morning without giving the crew another reason to haul him in front of Hakoda, or picking any more fights. Hakoda hadn't even heard any complaining from any of them, which was rather strange for a laundry day. You heated the water too, didn't you? He asked, which caused his own crewmen to look vaguely guilty, almost like they'd spent the past hour actively covering for a firebender. Toklo squirmed when Hakoda met his eyes. Panuk offered a lazy shrug. The prince was drowning inside Hakoda's own coat, giving a fairly good impersonation of a moray hermit crab ready to strike from its shell. Add that one to the list. Moray hermit crab? Love it. It was a good idea, Hakoda said, and the prince just stopped. Stopped glaring, stopped looking ready to fight. Hakoda raised his voice strong enough to carry, because it was about time to make some things official with the crew. I did say you were allowed to bend, as long as it wasn't harmful. Just keep clearing it with whoever you're working with, exactly like you did. Carry on. The prince still looked vaguely stunned by the time Hakoda left to take the wheel back from Tuluk. He clearly wasn't used to getting positive reinforcement from the enemy. Or from his father.
Yep. Just gonna say that.
Yep, Ray. He's
like
not used to positive enforcement at all. Get this kid like one of those like inspirational quote books where you're supposed to like turn to a new page every day. Just tell him to like read it all in one go. Get this kid some self-esteem.
A book a day. A whole thing of those every day.
Yeah, just to catch up.
Maybe one of those inspirational quote Instagrams. That would do, right?
Oh, yeah. Mandatory inspirational Instagram viewing.
Good stuff.
Oh, buddy.
He needs it all.
Yeah.
Okay. The wind brought their conversation up to the wheel in bits and pieces. Water's getting cold again, could you? Tukla said. Then on the next gust, how did I ever live without a firebender? How do the sails work? The prince asked. You are literally fishing for information to help you escape, Kunuk said. Don't think we didn't see you poking around the... Could help more if I knew how they worked. It's not like I'm going to escape soon. You could at least bother denying it. There was suddenly rather more splashing than there should be. Hakoda handed the wheel off and stared over the rail at three rather wet, rather guilty-looking boys. He instigated, and anyway, it wasn't a fight, the Fire Prince hurried to say, pointing a finger at Tuklo. Yeah, well, he wouldn't stop watching how to work the sails. Why would I not be watching? It's your own fault for bringing me on deck. Please, for my sake, Kunuk said. Please at least pretend to deny it. But everyone knows I'm going to try escaping soon, the Fire Prince said. Like, the concept of deceit was entirely baffling to him. To be fair, everyone did know. But he could at least have the decency to deny it. Back to work, Hakoda ordered.
Hakoda leaving the wheel to deal with these rowdy teenagers. Don't make me turn the boat around. But he doesn't try to escape again.
Naomi, that was a bad
Spoilers.
You're right. He doesn't try to escape again. That is convenient, Kunuk said a few minutes later. Could you dry my socks too? Or could you dry my clothes too? No. Please? You starve it. Please? Please? I'm so cold, I'm probably going to die, but I won't blame you or haunt you even a little because I started it, and I've really learned my lesson. Please, fine, shut up. 19. In Kunuk there is a mighty 21. And don't you forget it, Kunuk said. 16, the Fire Prince said. Wait, seriously? But like, an old 16, right? Almost 17? My birthday was 2 months ago. Everything made a little more sense in Hakoda's world. Oh, wow. I know.
They're all so young.
Wow. Ah, they're babies.
Babies.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Kunuk, smell this. Don't shove things in my... Wait, what is that? I don't know. It's like a really cozy campfire with some kind of spice. Here, give me that again. You can't just sniff someone bending, the prince protested. It's weird. Stop. Put that. Give it back.
I want to start a candle scent. That's just Zuko's bending. Or like
phenomenal idea. I think we need to get a backer on this.
Yeah, or like a deodorant smell, like an Old Spice.
Oh my god.
But it's angsty Zuko. Yes. Not gonna lie, I love how Muffin writes autistic Zuko's POV, and he's just friend-shaped like a hedgehog. Exactly. Exactly.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
Yes. Friend-shaped hedgehog. You just have to not grab him really hard, and then you can tickle his little belly. Have you ever held a hedgehog? They're really cute. They're really cute.
When have you held a hedgehog?
Elliot's friend had an illegal hedgehog, and then he had to take care of it. And I got to see it, and it was adorable. And I'm really sad that they're illegal.
I'm jealous. I'm so jealous. It's fine.
You'll have to hit up Elliot for those good illegal black market hedgehog connections.
You know, I might not do that. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, any cops listening, definitely won't do that. We're not going to smuggle contraband hedgehogs across state lines. No.
Nothing of that. What are you talking about?
No.
It's nice. Shut up. That's good, cracking his back. I'm going to grab some lunch. You guys hungry? Yeah, Zuko said. Yes, Zuko echoed, and the tribesman's gaze shifted to him. He hadn't worked nearly as long as necessary, or as hard, but maybe that was okay? The chief had said he'd done a good job. Not that he'd even done anything special, just Uncle's tea heating trick taken to the extreme, and a servant's trick for drying clothes that he wasn't supposed to know. but Azula had pushed him into the pond so often, and he couldn't keep coming inside with ruined clothes. Neither of them were even real bending. But to a crew of non-benders, maybe they looked harder than they were.
Oh, Zuko, stop negging yourself.
You are doing
boy.
Great.
You're doing great,
so
sweaty.
Finnick came back after with a few different plates, and just sort of set them all over the deck around them. He and Toko started eating. Which one's mine? Zuko asked. None of them. Right. Zuko picked up a shirt, took a breath to make sure he wasn't about to light it on fire, and then got back to work. Finnick was looking at him again. They're all a little different, right? So we'll share. Take what you want. Take a break, would you? Oh. This looked exactly like when they'd gotten food for dinner yesterday. But they'd stared at him then like he was being really weird, not eating when they'd literally put food in front of him. Oh.
We don't share food on my ship, he said, in an attempt to feel slightly less stupid. Sounds about right, Panook said with a half grin. I mean, the Fire Nation doesn't really share— Shut up. Wait, Toklo said. So you were literally starving yourself with food in front of you yesterday? And with a whole room of food really obviously sitting there? And I wasn't just gonna steal your food. How could you steal food? Toklo asked. We put it out for everyone to eat. If you don't take any, you're disrespecting the cook and the hunters and the animals. How was I supposed to know that? You could have asked, Panook said, which implied that they were going to answer him, and that they'd tell him the truth when they did, which was a really good way to get tricked in Zuko's experience. But, may I have seconds? What? Oh, you want more? Panook jerked his head towards the stairs down. You know where the kitchen is, but if you're not back in a minute, I am sending a search party. Aw, Zuko just not trusting anyone because he grew up with Azula and his dad and the Fire Nation in general. Oh, buddy.
Yeah.
There was more than one crewman in hearing range who tensed at Panook's too casual trust, but the kitchen was right down the hall, and half the people Zuko was making paranoid could see him go in there without even leaving the deck, and he was back in a minute. He sat back down and tried not to bristle when Toklo stole straight off his plate, because apparently it wasn't his plate. Zuko deserves friends. Yes! Get him friends. Aw. The rest of the crew tried to ignore him completely, especially when he went back for thirds. This was safer than acknowledging that a fire prince could still just be a growing 16-year-old boy.
Yeah, let's just not acknowledge that.
Yeah, that's a little hard.
Prisoner?
Yeah, not great.
Not great.
Not great. Zuko got to change into his own clothes that night, because Healer Kusta had tossed them into the laundry basket. And he got to give back the chief's smelly coat, newly washed, because Toklo let him borrow his. It was still too big, but at least it only pooled a few inches past his fingers instead of a foot. And he got to feel clean for the first time in days, because when he asked if he could bathe, Toklo had realized the further implications of readily available hot water and had been incredibly enthusiastic for this lifestyle shift. As are we all. As is my sanity. Let these boys take a bath, please. Oh, please. The Water Tribe ship didn't have a shower or a proper tub aboard, but Zuko was willing to accept a bucket and a washcloth if it meant he could finally get rid of the disgusting fever sweat he'd been wearing. When the chief ordered him to bed that night, he finally smelled clean. He had more nightmares, but they were quieter, so it was fine. It's not fine! Ah, what an ending. Oh, man.
I love normalized trauma. Great.
We'll work through that. That's on the to-do list. We'll get there. Oh, we love.
We do love. Oh, I'm sad it's over.
I know. It's like...
Oh. Thank you, Uncle Agent 2. It's very kind of you.
Thank you for the follow. So we're gonna try to do this pretty much once a week. We'll do like a couple more streams of Salvage, and then maybe we'll take a break and do like some one-shots for like a stream, just so we have a little bit of variety. But we'll definitely keep going with Salvage until we finish, because we do love it very much, and it's gonna be done soon. Holy moly. I'm not ready.
Don't remind me. Don't remind me.
I'm not ready for the custody battle of uncle versus uncle.
Wait, I am actually very ready for it.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, this was really nice. Good night. Yeah, good night, Cat in a Bag. Thanks for joining us. And yes, if you
No.
have any No. What?
Wait, no. Ray is amused. Do not say that.
No. No. That's not gonna happen. It'll be fine. It'll be
It's not-
fine.
it's-
It'll be fine. I
that's
have
the
to
rate we're
believe
going,
it'll be fine.
It'll be a month or a few.
Yeah. With our rate we're doing, like, it takes about an hour to do like 9,000 to 10,000 words, and this is over
We did do
100,000.
math.
Yeah, we did do the math. It's gonna be a couple months. Muffin has plenty of wiggle room.
But if not, we will put an ultimatum out. Muffin must finish it, or else we will. I don't know. No.
No. We don't poke the author. We give her love and praise, and we support.
Okay, how about this? We incentivize. You get sweets. I'll bake you a cake, Muffin. How about that?
Bake a cake? How would we ship
I don't
said
know.
cake? Would it not be maybe cookies? Maybe cookies are better bet. Yes.
My mom frequently sends frozen pies through the mail. It can be done.
Oh, a frozen pie?
Mhm.
Literally
It's
feed the
awesome.
author. Literally feed the author.
Yeah.
Well, aren't we dumb? Muffins? Kira, we're dumb. Muffins. They're right there. Yes, we can all chat about what we wish would happen. Yes, definitely, please. Okay, cake accepted. Final offer. Okay. Hello.
Ugh.
Yes.
Sorry.
What do people wish would happen? I mean, I'm just here for all of the Iroh content. I love him very much, and I just I really liked the tea battle. Between him and Kusta. I definitely love.
Mhm. This is very, very fun.
Yes.
Drama, obviously.
Yes.
Obviously drama.
Of course. I love to have my heart ripped out.
Mm-hmm. Listen, Uncle Iroh, does he have a hair bead for Zuko? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, I mean, clearly a one-up, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait,
Very important.
does Iroh then get to wear a hair bead? I would love to see that.
Oh my god.
Oh
yes.
Man, I would love fan art of him with the little matching hair beads. Aww.
At Muffin, hair bead. Uncle Iroh.
Cake.
Not saying anything. Hmm?
Aww. So cute.
Mm-hmm. Any more ideas about boss uncle battle? Uncle boss battle?
Boss uncle battle? I mean, if we could just have like a spectator, like a WWE style spectator calling out, the pot. Iroh dealing with hammocks. Oh. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Oh god.
Oh no.
I'm here for it. I am here for the slapstick.
Panook is the I was thinking either Panook or Toklo or both of them together. They get to be the MCs.
Oh my god, they would have such good banter. They would probably fight a lot, but it's fine.
It's fine. Well, that's how they know, is they've had the experience.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I mean, they kind of have already done a.
Oh wait, no. Is this how we get Toph? Is this how we work Toph in?
Oh my god. Oh my god. You're a genius.
Genius.
Brilliant. Pure brilliance.
Thank you.
Well, regardless, I am very excited to reading whatever Muffin has in store for us, and I will probably cry when it's done.
Yes. I will almost definitely cry.
Yep.
Hakoda being upset about the North not to. Yes. Okay. Yes. Fucking Paku getting his shit kicked in
Yes.
emotionally,
Oh my
metaphorically.
god, I'm
we
so
we
ready.
don't we condone the kicking of old man ass by one person and one person only, and that is Katara.
True. Correct.
We do want to see her kicking ass always.
I mean, what else does she do? I mean, like, that's, like, she is an ass-kicking machine.
As are all 14-year-old girls. Ass-kicking machines.
Dude, if there's anyone I'm terrified of, it would be 14-year-old girls. They're some powerful people, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the energy to fight the patriarchy is just, like, so strong, so concentrated at that particular age.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It's like you're just old enough to start, like, actually realizing this shit and being like, okay, okay, it's time for some ass
Fuck
kicking.
this shit. Mm-hmm. Paku gets ass kicked by Katara. Ah, good for her meme. You're right.
Yes,
You're right.
good for her. With the little, like, cupcake. Amazing.
Yes. Yes, you understand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, we do need good snacks with which to spectate. both the uncle custody battle throwdown and the Katara kicking all of the ass.
Yes, I'm ready.
Always ready.
All right.
All right.
Should we sign off for the night?
Yeah. Yeah, is good. Thank you again, everyone who turned up. And if you missed part of it or you want to go back and re-listen, we're going to have this posted on our Twitch. Like the uncles are fighting and Zuko just asking to... yeah, Zuko is watching and he has like 2 trays and he's like, I don't know how to feel about this. And Panuka is like, just get us more snacks. It's fine. But yes, we'll be posting everything on the Twitch, and then I think Twitch only lets videos stay up for like 14 days. So we'll see about maybe like starting a YouTube channel, just because I like to save stuff. And if people want to go back and like re-binge the whole thing, that can be an option. But yeah, anything else, Kira?
Wait, I'm gonna do the total YouTuber internet thing. Make sure to follow us on all our platforms. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
I'm gonna just throw up in my mouth a little bit there. It's fine. No, that's great. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming.
Like, yeah, do genuinely come chat with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, we don't bite.
Well,
right. Well,
I'm kidding.
Do the edgy like 2012 internet thing.
Oh God.
Ew. Anyways, all right. Thank you again for coming, and good night. Sleep well. Sweet dreams. Yeah. Drink your tea.
All of the above.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.